Okay, Todd O'Donnell, before we get into the Blue Jays, I just want to talk to everyone about what we are going to talk about. Important matters, quitting your job, walking away from corporate America. Remember 9to5sucks.ca?
Yes.
Money and kids, how you're talking to your kids who are getting older, not exactly young.
No, but they're at that age that they're,
you need to have some,
they need to know.
Yeah, money and kids, life insurance, participating our whole life. You can correct me on what the right term is, and term life insurance as it comes to maybe an estate planning tool, especially with real estate investors who are looking to pass on estates. Sometimes, I don't know, this gets into a big argument. So we're going to get to those three things, but I did want you to remind me, because you just said, just so everyone knows, Todd came running in here today and said, I got to tell everyone how off you were with your Leaf predictions. So just as we're sitting here right now,
last year's Leaf predictions.
Last year's, because they're 2-0 currently in the Ottawa series.
Correct.
So I don't know when this is going to be released and what it will be, but this is our Stanley Cup run. So you can choose to ignore it and get on the bandwagon, or you can choose to be wrong for the next few weeks. What are we, late April something? So what, another 6 weeks of just being crying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you go ahead and tell me what you think is going to happen with the Leafs. What's your Leaf prediction?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious they're going to make it through this round. I mean, they have Ottawa just doesn't have the tools. I mean, even with a shitty game last night, the Leafs played, they still pulled that one out. But it's going to be tough. Second round again. They got to play Tampa or Florida.
No,
it's not going to be.
Florida just steamrolled Tampa last night.
I know. Like they're just.
Kachuk's back, healthy. I think he got 2 goals.
Yeah.
But we hit Stolarz is now like reminds me of Belfour.
Yes.
Now he's making big saves and he's smashing people in I was going to say in the face. Not quite there yet.
He's huge.
He's huge.
Yeah.
He's 6'6", 248 pounds.
Yeah, they were saying that guy that he hit, there was a 50-pound difference.
Well, when he hit him, I don't know how it was on TV. When he hit him, he just pancaked the guy straight down. And then our defense.
Yeah, the D's way better than last year.
Just way better.
Oh, yeah.
It just gives me hope. It doesn't feel like we're scrambling.
Yeah.
Even when we're not playing well, Tanev's not a big guy. Have you watched him skate?
Yeah.
He's an amazing skater.
Yeah.
Brandon Carlo doesn't seem to get flustered.
No.
McCabe's kind of gritty and tough.
Yeah.
Benoit, we now have OEL on the back. He's, I think, on the third line with Benoit. It's pretty good. Brandon Carlo's making Riley look stable to me.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, no, I think this is their best defense they've had.
Oh, wow. Okay, you're sounding positive. Okay. Like, go ahead. Tell me how wrong I was last year. Let's hear it, please. What to get it off your chest.
So I think, I'm not sure if there had been a game played, but so both you and I forgot. I thought they played Florida last year. I was thinking they made it to the second round.
Me too.
So that just goes to show, as a Leaf fan, you just like erase things out of your memory. They lost to Boston in the first. I'm like,
I thought that was the second round.
That was like 5 years ago. But last year they lost in Game 7 to Boston.
Okay, I remember the Game 7 loss.
Yeah.
I swear it was the second round.
I know. No, it was the first round. They've only made it to the second round once. But anyway, you predicted, I think it was in 5.
Yeah.
You predicted.
Yeah. Hey, some people in your circle of friends have to be optimists and positive.
Correct.
Obviously, I'm that guy in your circle of friends.
Right.
Okay. So yeah, we are going to, I think we're going to take Florida this year. It's fine. They're our Stanley Cup. Because after Florida, who are we going to face? Washington? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't look petrified. They have been very good.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not petrified of them. And then who's going to make it on the other side? Edmonton, Colorado. Yeah. Like we have a chance against all these teams.
Yeah. If we can make
Florida
it past the second
most.
round. Yeah, that 100%. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then injuries kick in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stanley Cup parade this year at the Rockstar office.
I would say I'm a lot more confident this year.
I will rent you a Zamboni and you can drive it around the parking lot here. Okay? For our in-house parking lot Rockstar Stanley Cup parade. Okay? We can put your Todd
Is this a reward or a punishment?
No, it's a reward. What kind of punishment would that be? You don't think driving a Zamboni in a parking lot?
That'd be fun.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. I actually have to, I promised someone I'm going to fly them in from Montreal if the Leafs win, because he's a big Montreal fan, Habs fan. Okay. And I've been telling him how like Habs are like, they're just not going to make it anywhere. No. But when the Leafs win, I'll bring him in to celebrate with us. So anyway, I have to do that when they win. Okay. I wanted to just chat with you. You know, when you quit your job, just for anyone listening out there, I'm curious, what was it what was the decision-making process like when you quit your job? Where were you before you quit your job?
Yeah.
And then what was the process like to decide, I'm going to go out on my own?
Yeah. So I was in the beverage industry at the time. So you and I worked at Oracle until what, about
I think I left in 04-ish. Yeah.
So I had flip-flop between high tech and the beverage industry. So I'd worked for IBM.
That's quite the thing. Hey, I just went from, you could either find me in high tech or I was selling beers over down.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. So I had, when I was at Oracle, I had started a wine importing business. And that's why I went to Sleeman at the time, was to kind of, gain some relationships, and maybe that was going to be the business that I was going to go at, quit my job and do that. But it's very tough, as you can imagine, to import alcohol here, especially in Ontario. And it's a young man's game, and I had a young family, and I'm like, do I really want to stay? And
okay, because I was going to say, people do. I know
they do. Yeah, they do. But it's a tough gig if you've got a young family. It's a lot of evenings.
Just because restaurants going.
Yeah, restaurants, club. You're doing samplings, like it's all an evening. You're not doing this 9 to 5. So Sleeman got bought out while it was there by Sapporo. So we were all going to be out of a job at when this happened. So it was pure luck that I ended up at State Farm, to be honest with you. I was in my basement office in Toronto when I lived on the Danforth. Got a call from Peggy Zunker, I remember, and she started talking about this opportunity in insurance. And I'd had a couple of work terms in insurance during university.
So your name was on a list somewhere, like she didn't call you out.
So yeah, no, because we were up for sale, so my resume was out there, and she's like, Todd, you know what? The only reason I called you is my husband loves Sleeman beer. She says, my dog's name is Sleeman. She goes, I saw it on your resume, so I thought I would give you a call. So she went through the whole rigmarole of what this opportunity was. And I'd already had 4 or 5 failed small businesses that I had tried up to that point. So I got talking to some friends that knew a couple.
That's interesting, because that was just similar to me.
Yeah.
I tried a bunch of things. Yeah. So you had that already.
And I think they say, 5 or 6 tries before you kind of make it?
Some of them probably weren't even real businesses.
No.
Mine weren't either. It was like a website, and I was trying to sell some consulting.
Yeah.
And nobody visited the website.
And you sold whatever cameras via some.
No, that was successful.
Oh, was it?
No,
sorry.
No, that was an affiliate based.
Yeah.
That was a website with digital cameras where I got affiliate commissions.
Yeah.
I'm only laughing because everyone thought that was a massive failure, but I ended up doing the math on it. I was earning I guess you don't brag about this, but it was like $15,000 US a year after 4 months of work. And it did that for it
did forever for you,
like a decade.
Yeah.
And then finally
you did nothing.
just died.
Yeah.
I did nothing.
Yeah.
So to me, it was like, the return on that was pretty good.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Yeah. So I had, I think one of the first businesses I had, and I wish I had it now based on what's going on in the world, but buddy of mine designed Canadian T-shirts and hats. So we sold it in some stores, and then on Canada Day in Ottawa, we'd get huge duffel bags and we would sell these shirts to everybody, and I loved it. So based on what's going on right now, I wish I still had.
Yeah. So you just went around and no license or anything. You just went into the parks and all.
No, we were licensed.
Oh,
because they're pretty stringent there, and that was almost 30 years ago.
Okay.
So we had a license. We did it the right way. So back to getting the call. At that point, I was like, okay. 9 to 5 sucks. I was just at this point where I've been flipping back and forth between IT, and you work with me. I mean, it was a great experience, learned a lot of things, but it
turns into a grind.
Yeah, it's a grind. It wasn't me. I had no desire to learn, whereas you knew the stuff. I think you went to school for technology. So you at least understood it.
I like that. Hey, I think you kind of knew something.
I didn't know it.
It didn't really show when you spoke, but I think you had
I had to piggyback guys like you, the consultants, because I had no clue. I could build a relationship with people, so I had no desire there. I knew that the beverage industry, the alcohol industry, just wasn't something for me and my family. I just at that time said, okay, this is it, and quit.
But so the idea they were selling you is like a geographical area where you're going to be a licensed State Farm insurance rep. They don't, from what I remember, seem to give you any clients.
No.
And you basically had to move your family from the east side of Toronto.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So we were living on the Danforth, so young family. So my kids would have been, I don't know, maybe 3 and 1. And the opportunity was out where I am now, so to open an office in Cambridge. So Tara and I had met at Laurier, so we thought, well, Kitchener-Waterloo, let's do
And
it.
remind me, were either of you from that area?
No. I was born in Scarborough. She was born in St. Catharines. Yeah. It's funny. Yesterday I went.
Don't advertise that.
I had to renew my passport. It's been on my passport.
You're a Scarborough boy?
Scarborough.
Oh,
Scarborough General. So she says, do you want to leave it at Scarborough or would you like to put Toronto? I'm like, really? I can do that? And I'm like, no, I'm going to leave it at Scarborough. Where were we? So anyway,
Growing up in Mississauga, you just didn't venture into Scarborough. My grandmother lived in Scarborough, so
I grew up in Mississauga too. Don't forget.
Yeah, you moved.
That's right.
Yeah,
I was on the other side of the tracks, the nice side of the tracks. Where were we? Moved the family to Kitchener. So, so I started with 0 clients. And I know we've talked about this before.
Yeah. And the fear of that didn't exist because you just thought, I was selling t-shirt. Like you have done sales.
I mean, the nice thing of partnering with somebody, I mean, there's some good and bad. State Farm, very successful.
So you have the brand to
you have the brand. They were, I can't remember the study, but I think like the fastest organically grown insurance company in the world. Others would grow through acquisition. State Farm grew like one client at a time. So their philosophy and the way it worked is we're going to give you 0 clients. We're going to bonus you out based on, hitting certain levels each month. But we have our process is you have 1,500 people that you're going to talk to or that you can call once you open. So I had to knock on 4,000 or 5,000 doors to get 1,500 people to
So you would drive from Scarborough to Cambridge before you opened there.
Yeah.
In the winter. And door knock.
Yep. Tara would.
For how many hours? Like what were the hours you were doing?
So I would do Tuesday and Thursday nights and Saturdays, sometimes Sundays. So I would get there, Tuesday. I would start maybe around 6.
So you have a map of the area. You literally just
it's a very specific map because there's already other agents in Cambridge. So it's
so
you can only knock on these doors.
But you literally park your car to the side of the road.
Park your car.
You get out and you just start walking up to somebody's house.
That's right. And it's dark.
It's winter. Are you like shitting your pants on, maybe not that you're scared to go to somebody's door, but that like what you're doing, like what are you doing?
Yeah, like I think initially, it still sucked every night. Like it's hard.
What did you say to yourself to do that?
Well, again, it was moving my family. We had nothing. Tara wasn't going back to work. She didn't have a job. I had no choice. I either did this or I knew it was going to fail. Like they say, if you do this, you will be successful. So I put a lot of faith in them and said, okay, as much as this sucks, it's -20 and I'm out here.
But that helped. Oh. They told you that.
And
whether that was right or wrong.
Yeah, no, it was 100% right. And, no knock against anybody else that was kind of in my class when I started. There was a lot that didn't do it. Right. When they were heading to the, because we trained at State Farm's head office, for about 4 or 5 months, while they all took off for lunch, I got on the phone and called commercial businesses to get more of these.
You're just a natural sales guy.
Just because, again, I knew like a lot of these, again, no knock on them, but, their wives were working or their husbands were working. We had no stream of income. So it was like, okay, this is either going to work or it's not.
Shit.
So it was just a lot of blind faith in their philosophy and how things work. And it did work out. And, those people that said, hey, sure, give me a call, like a lot of those clients are still with us,
Wow. So then when you decide to move the family, is that at that same time you're opening an office in the area? Was it mandatory for you to open an office? Could you have just done this business working from home?
No, it was mandatory.
You had to have an office.
Yeah, so you're signing a 5-year lease at, call it 40 grand a year.
Commercial lease that you can't walk away
That's
from.
right. Yeah.
And you had to furnish the office with desks.
Furnish the office.
So you're using everything you have at this point.
Yep. Hire employees.
Are you in there painting did you hire people to like paint the office and stuff? Were you in there painting?
So it was good. And again, the recognition of the brand. When I was signing the lease, even though it was Todd O'Donnell signed that lease, when they knew it was State Farm, they said, you know what? We'll pay for your build out.
No way.
So they actually paid for the build. So I didn't have to pay anything for the build out, which was great. I ended up staying there, I think. 10,
I feel like you're there for a while.
So they got their money back. But having that brand recognition helped, because they paid for what would have cost me probably at the time, I don't know, 75, 80 grand.
Wow. Okay, so you get in there, you throw your name on the biggest, I think you used the biggest font that the sign allowed. If anyone pulled into this strip mall off of Cambridge, and what was the intersection, 401 and what?
401 and Town Line.
401 and Town Line, and you pull into this mall and you try to find where State Farm is. You might not find it because all you see is Todd O'Donnell.
I wish we still had that
5,000
picture that
font.
you sent me like 15
I don't
years
know
ago.
where your office is, Todd. I can't find it. His name, just for anyone listening, his name is like the size of the McDonald's arches. Yeah. Todd O'Donnell in massive font. It was size 5,000 font.
Yeah.
Anyway, so luckily in the parking lot you could find, if you knew you were going to see Todd, you could find him. The other businesses had like business names, like we're the dry cleaners and we're a convenience store, but Todd O'Donnell was Todd O'Donnell. Yes. You're coming to do business with Todd. So okay, so then you quit, and then is there a moment when you start where the income isn't flowing and you're panicking, or was it just it was pretty steady from the get-go?
Yeah, it's funny. Like I don't think there was ever any panic. I just kind of said, okay, this is what it is.
Did you have credit lines you could dip into?
So that was good. They're very smart with making sure that you are going to have access to capital. So they, while you're training with them, you're an employee. So they say, okay, we're going to give you a salary letter, and we want you to go to the bank, and we want you to get a homeowner line of credit. So that you have access to this. And that's what we lived off of for basically.
So State Farm was kind of organized.
Yeah, they're smart. Yeah. I mean, hey, let's go into debt of $300,000 while you build this thing.
And is that how much you went into debt? About $300,000?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, because we supported the family, and then the dips when the business didn't have what it needed to pay my staff or pay the marketing, pay the rent.
So then you went negative $300,000. So then you have to crawl out of that $300,000, and you actually crawl out of it.
Yeah. But again, it was weird.
Because we went in, I'm saying this because we went negative too.
Yeah.
Like I remember for us, I think it was like around the 85,000 negative mark. I looked at Nick and I'm like, okay, like my credit line, I think my credit line was 160 or 180. I'm like, we need to eventually turn this around because I'm using the credit line to pay for my property taxes on my house.
Yep.
It's the credit line that's on my house that I'm using to pay for the property taxes on my house. I'm like, I'm no big financial guy at this point, but I don't really think this is the best
banks, right?
This is the best strategy.
Yeah. How is this even possible? Yeah.
So I think we crossed over maybe 6 figures briefly, and then somehow just stabilized. And then it's not like we went to zero immediately, but we didn't go dig a hole deeper. I think we stayed there, and I was able to chip away at it. It takes quite a long time. But then when you get past that, I'm sure for your life things changed because now you don't have this $300,000 you're responsible for.
Real estate investing isn't always easy, but it can be relatively simple. And that's where the Rockstar Inner Circle comes in. Look, there's a lot of real estate investing information out there these days. That's why it's so important to pick your sources wisely. And even though investing isn't always going to be the easiest process, it does not have to be super complicated. That's where tried, tested, and proven strategies like the ones that Rockstar members use come into play. Everything shared in the Inner Circle is built from firsthand on the streets experience in the current market. It's all up to date, things that people are actually implementing today. In fact, the ongoing courses are delivered live, so they're always up to date with the absolute latest real life experiences. As a Rockstar member, get ongoing access to over 20 different systems and programs covering things like which properties investors like and why, our private rental system, what opportunities the investors are scooping up in student housing currently, the legal side of investing, why or how to use corporations as an investor, a mortgage class with the absolute latest options and programs to build your portfolio as an investor because they're different than a regular home buyer. And there's a whole ton more in all those different classes. Of course, to implement all these strategies, members get access to unlimited private one-on-one coaching with an actual human experienced investor, not an AI chatbot, not ChatGPT or anything like that. It goes beyond training, classes, and real estate. It's a community for people looking to take control of their own finances, to give themselves options and allow them to live life on their terms. With ongoing live and virtual opportunities to connect, it's built for investors by investors. You can see everything members get at rockstarinnercircle.com/member. It's rockstarinnercircle.com/member. Now back to the show.
And I don't know what that tipping point was, to be honest, if I look back, but I would, that first 2 years, for the most part, we lived off a credit line, but it's, I don't know.
I know.
And I don't think you're the same. I never.
What is that? Just our cost?
5 years prior to that, 10 years, I would have been, because I was all, hate debt, get rid of the mortgage. And I don't know, at the time, I guess it was just belief in myself and belief in us as a family that we would be able to
I think that's what it is, because when I look back at that era for us, I remember it was a month of June, and I had quit I went to NetSuite for just about 2 years when we left Oracle, and I had quit NetSuite in May. In June, we lost 9 real estate deals in a row with investors.
Yeah.
And that's how the business was making money. It was a commission off investors getting properties. And when we lost 9 in a row, we were leaving the Keller Williams office that went bankrupt afterwards in that location. They've since reopened in Oakville, but that location had gone down. And we were going into my car, and Nick was in his car, his Honda Civic. I think at this point I was very sophisticated in my Acura. Yeah. And he's like, hey, if we don't start closing some deals soon, like, we're going to be in trouble. Yeah. But it never really crossed. I'm like, oh yeah, like, that's no problem. The next one's probably going to close, and we're going to be good. Yeah. It never kind of crossed. And I think that was a moment for him. I think he was more concerned with me because I was married with the family. He wasn't yet. No kids, not married just yet. So I think he was a bit concerned, but then he watched it too. And we're just like, yeah, of course. Yeah. It's going to work. It's weird how you have that.
It is. I think it's just, you got to, if you don't believe in yourself, like, it's going to be.
Did that come from your sales experience before? Did that come from personal development? But like, when you were at Oracle, were you reading any personal development books? Like any Tony Robbins?
I think I had gotten into some Tony Robbins at that time because I was dissatisfied with what I was doing and where I was at. Still a young man, but it was, I was around 30-ish, early 30s, at that point where it's like, okay, like, what am I going to do here with
get your act together?
I think would it have been like audio cassettes maybe, or maybe even VHF? Yeah. So I think at that point I had started with some Tony Robbins, read that book and the video. Remember The Secret, I remember that. That was kind of big around that time. And then, for some reason it just, it didn't bother me that I was 200 and some odd thousand in debt. And, going to the store and credit cards don't work and debit cards don't work. And the good thing, the nice thing is my kids were so small, they didn't understand. No. Right. Yeah. Which I kind of wish now, I wish they were maybe a little bit older that they could see what that's like. Right.
I know. I think about that a lot with Sienna. Aiden remembers some of it, but Sienna is younger. And when we were going to Europe for the first few years, we were getting ferries to go to the islands because really that's all we can afford. Sure. We wanted to go to the islands, get a ferry. And I remember looking at people on their own boat thinking, who the hell are those people? Like, how lucky are they? Like, you must be winning at life to be on that boat. Yeah. And then, a few years later, we were able to rent a boat with a captain of the boat, and Nick's family and my family would go on the boat. And that's the first year we're doing it. We stop at this one island where all the mega rich from Europe, like there's levels to wealth. Yeah. And, we park.
You show up in your dinghy,
We show up in our dinghy. We park our boat, but I'm obviously like, I'm thrilled, right? Yeah. We stay over on the island in the morning. We text the guy who's the captain of the boat to come and pick us up in the harbor. So I'm like this is amazing. This is amazing. We're getting a boat to pick. I'm just winning at life right now. Walking on this island, and Sienna looks at this yacht that's like in front of us that must have been. I don't even know. Like, it's basically an apartment building on the water. And she's like, Dad, next year, let's get that boat. And I was like, oh my God. Like, you just realize how you can get caught in things.
Oh, I know.
Like, no, Sienna, you have to understand, like, our Forrest Gump boat over here, it is the best. And it did look like a Forrest Gump kind of fishing boat.
I'll share a similar story. So this would have been, so about 10 years ago, so 2015. So we're just now, now
have a little bit of cash.
Now you still got to watch things, but it's so this was a corporate trip with State Farm, and we were in Lanai. So we took the kids with us to Lanai, Hawaii.
Wow!
And there's only one hotel on Lanai, and it's the Four Seasons. So it's a gorgeous. It's probably one of the nicest hotels I have ever been at in my life. Just everything about it is just amazing. So that's at the beginning of the trip. There's only, there's maybe 15 or 20 agents that made that part. And then you went to Maui and joined kind of everybody else. So we spend the 3-4 days there, and then we're pulling up to the Four Seasons Maui. And my youngest, who's probably, so he's what, 18? He's probably 8. He's like, oh, Dad, geez, this isn't that nice. Like, And you know what hotel it was? It's the one from the first White Lotus.
No way.
Honest to
That's
God.
that hotel?
That hotel. So I know we're going to talk about it
Probably
later,
like
but
a 1-year waiting list.
yeah.
to get into
Oh,
that
well,
hotel.
now it is. Now you can't even get in it. But at the time, it was pre White Lotus.
Yeah.
It was still the Four Seasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, at that,
Wow.
I'm like, I got to teach these kids.
Yeah.
That this. Money doesn't grow on trees. You got to work for you got to work for this. And there's
So how old are the kids now?
so Ryan he'll be 21 next month.
Okay.
And Cole is 19 this summer.
Okay. So 21 and 19. So then what are your conversations now? Like the business has been running, I mean, we're skipping many years now,
Yep.
but
Yep.
we've skipped a decade right now.
Yeah.
Business survives, you get, you continue to grow. You're covering more territory. But now the discussions with the kids are like, what? Like, what are you talking? Do you talk to them about savings or investments or real estate or just business building? How do you approach the subject? Or is it just whatever topic is current in the household at that moment?
Yeah. So, I mean, they know, as a family, we own some real estate. They know I own Bitcoin. But I know that they don't teach a lot in high school. And depending on what you take in university, they may not teach anything about money. So my oldest is a musician. So he's studying at Guelph. He's studying neuroscience and music. So there is no way he's going to learn anything about budgeting and finance and savings. And my youngest is, he's interested. He's kind of like, yeah, Dad, I want to, Bitcoin. Like I know you talk about.
Oh, really? Different attitude.
So we went on with my son away at Guelph.
By the way, when you say the word Bitcoin, you don't have to say Bitcoin. It's Bitcoin. It's the
Bitcoin. So anyway, I'm thinking, I should probably, knowing that they don't learn this in high school, and they're not really they'll sort of learn through osmosis, but now that Ryan's at university and not knowing when he'll be back. We had a family trip in February, and prior to going, I said, I'm going to sit the kids down for whatever it is, an hour or two, and just give them like the basics of savings, investing, and budgeting, because I think
they were open to. Did you have to schedule?
I told them. So
like Tuesday at 6, I got to talk to you.
One of them had asked. I think one of them had asked me about opening. I said, "Listen, I need to have a conversation with you first before you open anything, without knowing anything about what you're doing." So
because they're growing up in the era of gambling, online gambling, and meme coin gambling.
Yes.
Like their attitude towards money is just so different.
Yeah,
I don't necessarily know if it's. Gambling, I guess, crazy. I was going to say, I don't know if it's wrong. Some of it's definitely wrong, but it's just different.
Yeah.
So, okay, cool.
Yeah.
You sit them down and just talk about.
So I sort of prepared, I had ChatGPT help me a little bit, and I sat down, and what I thought was going to be an hour when we were away, it ended up being 2 hours, and Tara was there too. And, I take care a lot of that for the family. So it was good for her too, to be like,
sure.
Yeah, really. And it's, I think I take for granted that they should know these things. And I guess a lot of it's because of what I know, what I learned at school and how I grew up, and how basic I had to get for them to understand some of the concepts. Like my oldest, he just couldn't understand, like I have a bank account. How does it even get over here to this other thing? Like having to explain that. Yeah. So I'm glad I did it. I mean,
I wonder if that's because the changes for us were incremental. Like when you first got your bank account, you probably had a passbook that you updated maybe, and like a checking, like a book of checks.
Yeah.
So and then it kind of went from that to like, oh, there's a bank machine that you can access off hours. Yeah. And then after that, it was like, oh, Interact email transfers came many years later. So there's this gradual layering of all the banking, and you were able to kind of absorb it. Whereas they just are in this world where all of this exists. Like you can do all of this stuff, and it's changing every day. Yeah. So maybe it's just a lot more to digest too, right?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. But we were always, as soon as they got jobs, it was always okay. Like spend 10% of it and save the rest. But they, it was just, like a Tangerine account.
Yeah.
An RBC savings paying 0.75%.
Yeah, Tangerine 1.4.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Oh yeah. I don't even think it's that.
No, yeah, jeez.
Yeah, that's their.
At one point, my daughter came to me, I think, and said, "Why?" I think she was 16. She's like, "Why did my friends have all these bank accounts?" Because I was getting her to save in gold and silver, and then it became Bitcoin.
Okay.
So you didn't really need. It was just like, hey, if you got birthday money, whatever money came into your life.
Yeah.
We were for a while driving to Canadian Coin and Currency and literally buying physical silver and physical gold, and then it was Bitcoin. So she really never needed a bank account.
Yeah.
So now I had to go through the a few years ago the same kind of thing. Like here's how this all works.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was well received.
It was, yeah. Like I even got into real estate and how mortgages work and what's a good mortgage and what's good debt, what's not. So, again, I don't want them to just think that money grows on trees.
Yeah,
it's going to be easy for me. And no, you need to earn, and this is the way you save and invest.
We put a calculator together that we're going to do a video on, and we mentioned it at our last event. We're calling it Breeze, a Bitcoin real estate asset strategy. And you can find, if you're listening to this, on rockstarinnercircle.com/Breeze, BREAS. And on there, you can put the price of a rental property that you have. And then we'd make some assumptions like, let's say this property spits off $500 in positive cash flow. You're fortunate enough. You've owned it for some years. So this isn't applied to everyone. What happens if you take that $500 and you take a credit line at the bank, and the $500 a month pays for the $100,000 credit line, and you smash buy Bitcoin with that $100,000 and you keep it for 10 or 20 years, and then you're able to put in the compound annual growth rates of Bitcoin what you think it will do over the next 10 years, and then from years 10 to 20. And we graph it all out. And when I'll show this to you after, when we wrap here, when you start to see this on a chart, it's kind of just completely mind blowing, because you're taking $500 of cash flow that ideally you don't need, which I know is not the case for everyone. You're getting it's financing the credit line for you. And so your risk is the Bitcoin loses value. But if you hold the property long enough, the property gains will likely offset that $100,000. If it gets cut in half to like 50 grand and you're 50 grand in the hole on your Bitcoin investment, the property growth over the time kind of covers it. So your downside risk is somewhat controlled, but the upside, when you're compounding at like 24% on average, and that's like a low rate for Bitcoin, it is just incredible. Wait till I show you some of these numbers. So we're just doing this to try to get people to think, because it's hard. I think some people visualize numbers. Some people don't think of multiple asset classes together. It's a difficult conversation. But that's cool that you had that. Okay, and is there any then follow-up, or was it just like, okay, that's the basics, and now, we'll talk about this again as needed? I'm just curious. Not that there's any right answer. I'm just curious to how you're handling it.
Yeah. So after that, we got back. Ryan, he has opened up. I don't know if he went with Wealthsimple or Questrade.
Yeah, Wealthsimple is pretty popular.
He hasn't put anything into it yet, because him and I will sit down again and just talk about, they're all pretty good. Those companies, they say, okay, what's your age? What's the money for? I know they can guide him through. I said I would sit down with them, but nothing formal's been set up yet to talk again about mortgages or investing, whatever it might be, but I'm sure there will be. But for me, it was at least opening the door for them to say, okay, I can go ask Dad about this, and if I need something.
Okay, now let's skip forward another 20, 30 years to some clients who have owned real estate now. They're 50 or so. They've owned some real estate. They come to you talking about insurance. I guess, is there how do you approach the insurance angle? The most of the clients we see with some real estate, they start looking at insurance as maybe something that can help them with some estate planning. Do you have any insurance discussions? Are the conversations, what are they like when people are around 50 years old with maybe a couple of rental properties? Do you have those discussions? Or do you start much earlier with term life insurance when they're 30 or something and have a family?
Yeah, so, each one's unique. I mean, I would say we're pretty good at having that discussion at any age. But if we look at that, let's say it's a seasoned Rockstar member that's got a number of properties and they're in their early 50s, we usually start with, what's the plan with these properties? For some, it's liquidating,
sell them,
and that's going to be my,
we're starting to see that now,
right? I'm going to sell, and that's going to be my retirement.
We had a gentleman in their 60s, got 8 rental properties, and he called someone on our team, like, okay, I'm ready, time to start unloading them. Whereas
others, no, I want to leave them for my kids and my grandkids, and then from there it's okay. Well, you've got 8 properties. Do you want to leave all 8, or are you okay leaving 5 or 6? And then they're like, well, what do you mean?
Yeah. Why are you explaining it that way?
Well, because I think a lot of people get into real estate investing or running a business, whatever it might be, and they're busy with their properties and running their business or working, whatever it is, and they don't think about, okay, well, what happens at the end, right? So the reason we position it that way is, okay, I've got 8 properties, and are you okay with leaving 5 or 6? And well, what do you mean? Well, there's going to be some significant tax here when, if it's you and your spouse that own these properties. And when the last one goes, there's going to be a significant capital gain tax that's going to be owed. So you can.
So on the estate, when the last person of the couple who owns all this stuff dies, the government's going to say you have to pay up.
Yeah, that's right. So some families are, there's still 5 properties. I got 2 kids. Yeah, I don't need them to be filthy rich. I'm okay with that. And so in that case, there may not be much more of a discussion around the estate part. But there are others, whether it's a business that they've built or they own 8 properties, or they're like, no, I've worked pretty freaking hard to accumulate this. I want them getting everything. So that's the point where we say, okay, well, what's your plan around paying off that tax? And it doesn't matter how you have it set up, whether you have it set up individually or through a corporation, there's going to be tax. Eventually, the tax has to get paid. I don't care how great your accountant is, eventually that tax has to get paid. So that's where life insurance comes into play. And typically when we're talking about estate planning, it's permanent insurance. There's a variety of ways to do that. Whether it's
permanent insurance being...
Permanent means it is with you until you go. So whether you go at 55 or 105, you have the policy, right?
So you pay for a set amount of years, but the policy exists forever.
It depends. Some are paid up, so it depends. Some are paid up in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Some are paid up at 65. Other permanent policies, you pay forever. It really depends on the type of policy and what somebody wants to do with it. But when we're talking about estate planning, that's kind of the only way you can do it. You could look at term life, but the problem with term life is now you're gambling on when do I think I'm going to go, right? Well, my family, my parents.
I think the idea with term life always for me was that if I buy term life when I'm like 30 and I have a young family, the reason I want is because if something was to happen to me, I would want some type of financial coverage for the family. But then if the term expires when I'm like 55 or 50 or whatever, hopefully I've accumulated enough assets by that time that I don't really need the term life anymore. Right. And if I'm fortunate enough to have 8 properties, I can sell 3 of those off, or the estate can, to pay for the taxes that would be owed on the estate, and everything's good. That was always kind of like my thinking. But then if you kind of approach 50 or 40 or whatever it is, and you're like, I don't really want to give up the business. I don't want the business to have to be sold, or I don't want the properties to have to be sold. I should look into like a more permanent type of insurance.
Correct. So I'll touch on a couple. I'll talk about the term piece, like when you're younger, and then as you get older. So the term insurance is perfect for that 30-year-old family, and the reason is when you're that age and you've got a young family, your needs are the highest, but that's when you're the brokest. Yeah. Right. So,
and term life insurance,
right? And term life insurance is cheap,
relatively cheap.
It is
dirt cheap.
Dirt cheap. Like a 30-year-old. Like I ran some quick numbers. Like a 35-year-old male. $1 million policy, like a 20-year term, is $54 a month.
Yeah.
For $1 million in
so worth it, right? Absolutely worth it.
And that's just the peace of mind of, okay, if something happens to me while the kids are at home, they're going to be looked after. But as you get into your 50s and you look at getting I need $1 million, even in term, it's like, oh shit. Now
what is it? Do you know?
So 55, it goes up to 413
a month.
Oh shit. So what's that? 6 times?
Oh shit.
That's if you can get it.
Oh god.
Right? Because now,
because if you go through the medical, they might find something.
Yeah, you're in your 50s. I mean, we were just talking earlier about things in the body that start to go right at this age that don't function as they used to. So it might be that you're ineligible now. If you hook up with somebody that knows what they're doing, that's in the business, is going to be in the business for a long time, there's things you can do with term policies to flip those over into permanent without having to go through medicals. For the most part, depending on the company that you're with, and for the most part, probably 90% of term policies are convertible to permanent.
And this is something that Desjardins does?
Manulife.
They all do it.
They typically all would do it. All the major players would do that. So that's kind of the better way to do it is, okay, let's get $1 million policy when I'm 30 or 2 million, whatever it might be. Have that discussion with your advisor. Okay, eventually, and usually the advisor says, eventually you might want to convert some of this to permanent. Let me give you a quick lesson on what it is, and you go through that. But hey, right now, today, when you're 30 years old and you got 2 young kids at home, my philosophy anyway is I want to give your family the biggest possible check. Mm-hmm. And the way to do that at that age is typically term insurance, right? Because you can get...
Yeah.
Right? But my budget's $100 a month. Okay, well, I can get a $2 million term or $500,000 term and $50,000 in permanent. Well, I'd rather give your family a check for $2 million than $550,000, right? And that's where
and then you'll stick with the client for the next, 10, 20 years so that when they have to flip it, they can flip it accordingly.
Yeah, if they want to. And in some situations, it's like, no, I don't need that anymore. Or maybe we've had a discussion between now and then. They've got something else that's going to take them a little bit longer. But that's typically the way we like to do it. And what we, like for us, if it's in the budget for somebody, like a term, we have a term to 65. It's great. You've got the policy that you need till you're 65. Wow. In between now and then, we'll sit down and have a discussion. Okay, well, you've been successful. You've got 8 properties now. What do you want to do? I want to hand them all down. Oh, great. What about the tax bill?
Wow.
Okay, let's convert some of that to cover that tax bill.
How fortunate it is that your kids are going to have you to give you some of this kind of advice. I was just thinking, like, when you and I were like in our late 20s, I don't know everything about your network, but my family didn't really have, like, they couldn't come to me and say, hey, son, here is an insurance guy that we've used for 20 years. You should we've set an appointment. You're going to talk to him and he's going to watch over you. Here's a lawyer who handles estate planning, legal stuff. Here's an accountant who understands real estate and businesses and how to do personal accounting, all kind of in one. Here's a mortgage guy who can help you with a primary place of residence, but also if you ever look at rental properties and here's this awesome network of humans that is just going to guide you. Mm-hmm. Because I'm just hearing you speak and I'm like, wow, I feel very fortunate that my family and my kids can just call up Todd O'Donnell and ask him some questions and you're going to give them really great advice. And we really, or at least speaking for myself, I really just didn't have that. We had to stumble through all of this, reading books at chapters. Oh my gosh, did you read in this personal finance book? There's something called term life insurance. It's cheaper. Todd, did you know this? It's cheaper than the whole.
Well, so what was your first experience with term insurance? What was your? It
was a book. It was literally what I just said. It was a book of chapters talking about personal finance, and it was you should get, if you start a family. I think it was just a basic personal finance book, and it was if you start a family.
Did you buy the book or just read it in the store?
No, I just read it in the chapters. I would put them back on the shelf, and I would even bookmark them sometimes.
Come back.
Because chapters was so beautiful. There was leather chairs. There was Starbucks there.
No wonder they're almost out of business.
I know, poor company, but I just enjoyed them. But years later, I bought so many books out of just support. I swear, I would go in, I'd buy 3 copies of a book that I read years ago to give away to now support chapters because of how nice they were to me. But I would read the book and then I would go off and get the term life insurance because the book would I remember one book said, whole life insurance or participating, it's a rip-off when you're young. Never spend all that money. Term life is super cheap, just the way you described it. They were a little more aggressive in their language. And I was like, oh. And then I met with an insurance guy and he was pitching me this whole life policy where I had to commit to at the time, I think I had to commit to $5,000 a year, which must have felt like $8 million a year to me at the time. And
20% of what you're making after taxes. It's crazy.
So I'm like, oh, this guy's a scammer. And then I think I just called somebody up. I think it was the guys who were doing my car. I literally called them up and I said, do you guys have term life? I'm like, oh yeah, it's a different guy. And they're like, hey, Bob, get on the phone with Tom. And some guy got on the phone and I bought my first term life insurance. It was that.
Yeah. So it sounds almost identical to my story. So I'm trying to think. So Ryan, I was about 28, 29. Tara was pregnant for the first time. And I don't know why, but it's probably we should probably think of getting some life insurance, right? Because I remember at that time, we had bought a house a year or two before and we declined all the mortgage. And it wasn't because I knew, because it was
a scam.
Garbage. It's a scam. It was because I was like, I'm 26. I'm not going to die. Why am I worried about that? But then once you have as your wife's pregnant and you have a little one, it's okay, now I actually have to be responsible. So I called my brother, who's an engineer, not in insurance. He's like, just get a $250K 10-year term. So I call the
Just
car
standard advice.
I call the car insurance company. Oh yeah, no, it's Bob. Yeah, not me, but it's this guy over here. So he comes to the house and he tried, but because my brother told me to get a $250
You stood
10
your
year,
ground?
and that was the stupidest thing I ever did because 10 years went by like boom.
that. So
but
you
then I was
got-
in the business.
Sure.
You
So
know.
what should you have gotten there? Like 20 or 30?
20 or 30
Yeah,
year term because it was
so cheap. Yeah.
Like 10-year term to me, I hate 10-year terms
Yeah.
unless it's like, maybe you buy a business and there's a loan that you had to take
Yeah.
out and you're going to pay it off in 5 to 10 years.
So there's a definite.
You feel like you need it, or maybe the bank says we want to be assigned to this policy, but 10 years, it stinks because it goes by so fast.
Jeez. Wow. Can you, and sorry, I'm just going to go back to this power team. It's almost like someone needs to pull, like imagine someone pulled Todd aside and said, hey, here's the accountant, here's the lawyer, here's the insurance guy, here's a good real estate person, here's a good a marketing person for your business that had built a business with some art. Here's this. Can you imagine? I don't know if I'd listen.
Isn't that Rockstar? Isn't that what you guys do?
We're trying.
Kind of, right?
We're good at it. We're trying.
Well, you do. You've
We're
got
trying.
the Rolodex of,
Yeah.
I mean, I think about who I use for my will and real estate.
Yeah.
Part of Rockstar.
That's what we're trying to do. One of my friends who you don't know this buddy of mine from high school. He's like, I've never met a business before that's what did he say? It's created in your the liking of you or the image of you. Like somehow you've created a business in your image. I think he said something like that.
Yeah.
Like it's everything you talk about and you've not stopped talking about for years. You just basically somehow created a weird business that does all these things.
Yeah.
We had bagpipes at the last event.
Yeah, I missed it. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Who has bagpipes at the event? You know how happy that made me?
Yeah. But I think the last event was Indiana Jones, right?
Yeah.
See, I'm a huge Indiana Jones.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
The Matrix, I think, was maybe our peak.
Yeah.
But the Braveheart one, and we had a commercial that was really good. I think we have to put it out on Instagram or something soon. But the bagpipes playing, just for my mom, who says we don't do anything about Scotland or talk about Scotland enough, it was like it was a cool moment for us. Yeah. So it is a ridiculous.
Well, that's right. I forgot you're not all Croatian, right? There's the Scottish side.
That's you forgot. That's why my mom always says you guys just talk about Croatia all the time. But the Scottish side of our family, our mom was like the black sheep because she married our father. So in the family, I guess she was somehow some kind of outcast in some capacity because she married our dad. Mm-hmm. I don't know all the politics. It was just so blocked from us. Yeah. And then that side of the Scottish family, we just never really got to know. Like I would go see my grandmother in Scarborough. Yeah. And cousins would be there. But I have cousins, Nick and I have cousins in Toronto right now that we don't talk to.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's so weird. But our cousins in Croatia, they're like they're on WhatsApp. My cousin from Croatia just called me the other day on WhatsApp. Yeah. We talk to them all the time. We're planning our trip there. We speak Croatian. We have a property there. So we're like kind of just, I don't know, just closer to that side of the family. Yeah. So we just never talk about it.
That's too bad.
Weird, right?
Yeah.
Weird family dynamic. I don't know. What can I say?
Yeah.
But okay, so the term life insurance, what is the biggest miss that you feel people make? Is it like someone who calls when they're in their 60s who needed the insurance and didn't get it? Or like what, other than the term, like the 10-year term and they should have got 20 or 30, is there another just obvious miss, or no, it's just so case by case? It's too hard to say.
No, I would say there's a bit of a pattern. I'll think of like my parents, they're now in their 80s. And I think when people are younger, they feel that, well, I don't need.
I'm invincible.
But then, as you get into your 40s and 50s, I don't need to leave anything for my kids. But, I grew up in an Irish family. It wasn't a lovey-dovey type of household. But
no.
But I find as my parents have aged, they've gotten a lot more sentimental and a lot more. They want to leave something. They want to leave their footprint, right? And the problem is when people get up to that age, not 80, but maybe getting their 65, 70s and they got grandkids, it's like, okay, I want to leave something. Yeah. And now it's either too late or it's just not in the budget, right? So there's that part. But for the younger families, it's one, nobody likes talking about dying, so they ignore it. I've got it at work.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Well, that was
those
great.
policies are usually horrible.
They're terrible. 50 years ago when you stayed at the same company for 40 years, they're not portable. The next place you go, if it's a startup or like there isn't anything, and it's whatever, one-time salary. And I think there's that part too that whatever, my wife will be fine.
They were.
She's getting one times my salary.
Like 1.25 times salary or something. Well,
it doesn't matter whether it's two. What? Really? Like your wife's going to get by on $100,000?
I know.
What then?
I know.
So it's really getting people to think about. So we talk about people calling. Not a lot of people call for life insurance. It's just not something they're proactive on, unless they're buying a property and somebody tells them,
they hear it.
Right. So it's on us when we're having discussions about, hey, you've bought a property. Hey, you're having a baby. To challenge them to have that conversation, to start thinking about it. That's the hardest part.
Those are the life moments where people start thinking about it.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay, how much can you talk about the insurance industry right now? Like my insurance, I actually probably should talk to you about car insurance, but different insurance companies are good at different things. My experience with insurance companies, through a lot of just speaking with you, is sometimes they're aggressive on house insurance, sometimes they're aggressive on car, and the auditors and risk managers seem to change the profiles and stuff.
Yeah.
So not speaking from you specifically, but in general in Ontario with all the car thefts, is car insurance just up across the board, or no, it is still company by company?
It's up.
There's a lot of car thefts.
Yeah, there is a lot of car. Like I think, was it 20? I think it was 20.
2 doors down from me, beautiful Toyota truck just the other day.
Yeah.
Beautiful Toyota, one of those Toyota Tundras, but souped up.
Yeah.
Like the sport Toyota trucks.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Beautiful truck.
Yeah.
I told the guy, and I wish I never said it, maybe 4 months ago, I'm like, oh man, dude, beautiful new truck. Like that's a beauty, right? Yeah. A month later, gone.
Yeah. So I have a buddy, and I think you've actually met him before, lives in Etobicoke. He's had 2 stolen out of his driveway.
Toyotas?
One Toyota, the
Ford.
other I think was a Yukon, maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's rampant.
Off his driveway. I shouldn't. I'm only laughing because it's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's right. He loves me. He says, "You just cut checks, Todd." But yeah, it's still rampant. I think it was either 2022 or 2023. It was like,
so it hasn't slowed down.
Out of payouts alone, $2 billion of what was paid out in Canada was just for car theft. It used to be like the injury payments, or like that was the big part. Getting sued, and now it's car theft. Like it is. So most companies now are.
Can we just put Apple AirTags on these cars and block
AirTags are nothing because they can find them.
But what about just blocking the borders from? Don't these cars have to go on ships?
You would think so.
Is it really this difficult to stop the cars from leaving the country? They're cars. They're big.
I know. Yeah.
Don't we have X-ray machines?
Yeah. But I think there's so many people involved, and I was at a session a couple of years ago. And, they talked about the punishment for car theft versus drugs.
Oh,
so you're caught with 100 pounds of drugs, you're probably in jail for life. Car theft, it's a slap on the wrist, but the profit margins are the same. So that's why it was I can't remember, it was the RCMP who was presenting to us. They said, well, this is why it's so rampant, is these criminal rings have said, hey, let's go over here and do this.
Because they're smart.
If we get caught,
they looked at the laws.
Yeah, that's right. And said, well, yeah, if we get caught.
Why don't we just change the laws, Todd?
Yeah. You would, that would make sense.
I guess this will be out when the election's over, but I'm slipping in my election comments.
Yeah. So most companies are forcing, and it used to be 5 models of cars. We don't even have a list anymore of cars that we know are high theft. It's a lot of new cars. It's okay. Install this tag system in it, or we're going to charge you an extra $500 every year. Right. And I don't know.
Nick on his big truck, I don't want to say the model or whatever, but he's got a full, you can't even start this thing without knowing a freaking secret code. He's like, hey, can you move my truck? I'm like, no, dude, I can't, because you have to press 18 buttons in your truck to get it started.
Yeah.
That kind of system, I guess, that helps.
Yeah, depending. So I think we have 3, as an industry, there's 1 or 2 systems that kind of everybody's on board with.
Okay.
But I've heard some companies that they're charging, unless you put it in, they're charging you $1,500 more per year.
God,
it's crazy.
Teslas don't seem to have a problem.
Teslas don't have a problem with theft. The problem with Teslas is
the cost. Scratch now.
It's the cost to fix them, like the body repair. Yeah, because
is it high?
Tesla's so particular. And I'll give you an example. Let's say, I don't know, somebody backs into your front driver's side light and scratches the bumper a bit. In a normal car, we replace the light, maybe we buff out the bumper, get you a new bumper, whatever it is.
$1,800 or something.
With Tesla, you have to replace the other light because it's calibrated together.
Oh,
so now everything's almost double.
A buddy got that light changed. I think each light was like $600 or $800 too, or something.
So we're finding that insurance is getting more expensive on Teslas because of the cost to repair is 50, 60, 70% higher.
I do enjoy driving my Tesla. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Well, I got another.
You have
but I cringe when, I have friends call, oh yeah, I'm changing out my Volkswagen for a Tesla. I'm just like,
I think, but we all just know now, everything's expensive. Yeah. Everything is Like,
Yeah.
I don't even think it's a surprise anymore.
Yeah.
I just need to go back to my Honda Civic where the tires were $80. I'll never forget. I thrashed a tire. It was $80.
Yeah.
When I got my BMW X5 and they had the run flat, and they're like, oh, these are the best tires ever. I got a nail in it like a month into ownership. I pulled it into the BMW dealership. That'll be $850. I'm like, can't you plug it? They're like, no, it's run flat. Like, you have to replace it.
Yeah.
I quickly learned that you can plug those things.
Yeah.
And the next time it happened to me,
go to a tire shop.
I go to a
Okay,
tire shop for
that's right.
$35.
That's
I
right.
plugged that sucker. I'm getting $850 for a tire. You're insane.
I know. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's to answer your question, auto theft is still rampant. Yeah, so rates are they are going up. We haven't had an increase in almost 2 years, but we had a hefty increase about.
Okay, and that's just because different insurance companies, the book of business they carry, you just all adjust your rates differently.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so somebody to call. When they call you, I guess you get price shoppers all the time.
Yep.
Your primary business is home auto life.
Yeah. So our primary business is the PNCP, so the home and auto.
Okay.
So within home, it's rental properties, cottages, business, boats, etc. Life is a big component of my business.
Okay.
Not necessarily every Desjardins office. Yeah, with Desjardins, I think is the third or fourth biggest player in life, so it is a big part of Desjardins' business. But we're independent business owners, so depending on who your Desjardins agent is, they may or may not. Life may or may not be a big.
And then do you have if it's home auto, I can understand it might be more transactional. On the life insurance, will you talk with people over the phone or Zoom or how does that go? Because it seems like the conversation's a little bit longer.
Yeah, we typically we find in person is best, but depending on where you're we have, if somebody's in Burlington and we're in Cambridge and they just don't want to make the drive, that's fine. We like to do it on Zoom or Teams.
Okay.
And it's
because even though you're based out of there, someone can call you from Scarborough.
Oh yeah, we're licensed in Ontario. Like we
notice how I say Scarborough?
Yeah, Scarborough.
Scarborough.
Yeah. Our rates in Scarborough, maybe not so much. Maybe life insurance.
Okay.
Car insurance, maybe not.
Okay.
But yeah, we have clients Sudbury, Thunder Bay.
Okay.
We do a lot of business.
So you get along with someone, they can call your office, doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but the life insurance, it's not transactional. It might be a 2, 3, 4 appointment.
Got it.
Type meeting.
Okay. So you're obviously like really well thought out, insurance, business, all this kind of stuff. Why do you have these Blue Jay tickets again? What is it?
So it's funny.
What is it? Like, you're so
Okay. So I have
everything's thought out. But then you carry these Blue Jay tickets, and I'm not going to lie, some people really like them, and you are kind enough to offer us Blue Jays tickets, and people just
but let's get Keith and Nigel in here. See how much they enjoy.
They know multiple people.
Yeah.
They love you're in like the TDs.
So when you call me when they're in the playoffs, maybe not this year.
No, playoffs, I'll jump on.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll jump on the bandwagon.
No, I don't.
But 160 games or whatever it is, like what's going on? And then we pay $500 million for this guy Vlad, and I turned on the game a couple nights ago, and they're like, he hasn't hit a home run yet, and he hit his first home run. I'm like, $500 million for? Does he have 2 home runs yet?
He might still be at 1.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he's batting about 300.
But who cares? Are we getting into the playoffs?
They might squeak into a wild card. I mean, they're in the mix now. So it's early.
You enjoy, like, is this something you listen to like on the radio?
So I grew up.
You just don't watch this, right?
I grew up.
It's background noise.
Listening to Tom Cheek and
I remember that guy's name.
Who was the other guy? Jerry Howarth on the radio. Like that's
how you enjoy it.
14:30 a.m. when
you're out in the backyard gardening and you just put on a J game and like it's background noise.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And then I was thinking
because I'm used to sports where you actually watch.
Yeah. But the nice thing about, I could have gone to the game last night. I would have had to pay, but anyway, I could have gone to the game, and I'm like, oh man, you got to get downtown,
from
train, Kitchener, it's just like, it's so much easier on my couch, and you got to watch, right? Whereas a ball game is different, and for me, like I split it, so I think I have 10, 11 games. I like going down. It's kind of like golf for me. I would never go to a golf course on my own and try to hook up with a threesome and play around. I want to go with 3 buddies. Otherwise, I'm not going. Yeah. It's the same with a ball game. And the nice thing about a ball game is you can sit and shoot the shit and not worry about missing something.
Yeah,
because
clearly.
Because there's a lot.
I don't know when the game starts.
It's like football. There's a lot of inaction.
I can't tell the difference between the warm-up pitching and the first pitch of the game. There's no whistle.
Yeah. So that's what I enjoy going. Like to me, it's more about I enjoy, and it's the summertime too. Like right now, obviously the roof isn't open, but in the summer you're out in the sun.
That's nice.
That part I like.
Yeah.
I'm willing
days,
to.
What is it? Toonie dogs or?
So I had ago, and I've had the tickets forever. I had my first loony. It's a loony.
Okay.
Loony dog. A couple of weeks ago, I took my stepfather down for his 80th. Okay. It tastes like it's worth about $1.
I went last year to the Looney Dog game with a bunch of neighbors, and it was actually fun. I don't know if I watched the game, but
but the dogs are not.
No.
Slather. I'd rather spend $14.
Sugary ketchup. It's manageable.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're not going to make the playoffs. Unlike the Leafs, which are an actual sport, and you have to watch. They're not getting far in the playoffs, but until this year.
Hey.
And remember, I'm not just calling for the Stanley Cup this year.
Oh, it's back going on a run.
Oh yeah, it's back to back.
Okay.
You know why? Because when we
who do they have? But who's
when we beat Edmonton in the finals, McDavid's finally going to see the light and say, okay, Marner's going to be gone. That's going to free up all this cap space. The salary cap went up. We're going to be able to look at McDavid and say, hey, do you want to play with the Oilers,
with the real team,
or do you want to come over to the Leafs and win again?
Yeah.
Do you want to play with the Leafs and win? We're going to win again. Do you want to join us on a run?
Yeah.
You know, and then who knows what happens? Maybe we go 3 in a row. You never know.
That'd be nice.
Austin Matthews
let's
and McDavid.
not get ahead of ourselves here.
I'm all about getting ahead of myself on these kinds of
obviously.
As you,
did I tell you about Game 7 last year? I think I did, right?
Oh, jeez. You know, I remember Pasternak getting that puck. I think Riley was on the ice.
No, I'm talking about Game 7 of the Oilers, the Stanley Cup Finals, teams that actually made it to the finals.
You know, the Oilers. Oh, God.
But I think I told you that story. So I got a buddy of mine, very good buddy. He's a huge Oilers fan. So I'm at the cottage. It's Saturday.
Oh, yeah. Did you?
Yeah, and they're playing Monday in Florida.
You go to the...
And he's like, we're going. And I'm like, fuck. I don't really want... I can't, you know.
So you had to come back.
Canadian team, great. And then Tara's like, you got to go. So trying to get now flights to get down there. Well, everybody else in Canada is
scrambling. Did you get stranded somewhere?
So I'm going to go through New Jersey. I'm driving back from the cottage Sunday. I'm flying out that night through New Jersey.
From Toronto.
And...
Do you go home?
So I'm an insurance agent, so please, you can maybe edit this part out. So anyway, Tara's asleep as I'm driving, and I get a ping from Air Canada that my flight has been rebooked. So I look, and I'm like, rebooked the next day. It doesn't get me there till 9 o'clock at night, halfway through when the game starts. And I'm like, fuck. So anyway, I'm trying to drive home, and I flip around, and I accept whatever the next available flight is that will get me there on time. So I get home, and I'm looking at the code for the airport. I'm like, whatever it was, BTA, or I'm like, Bogota. Oh, yeah. I'm like, it routed me. I left Toronto. I went to Bogota, Colombia, and then back to Miami to get to that game. So anyway, when Edmonton is meeting Toronto in the finals,
yeah.
I will go. I will go, and I'll fly
all the
anywhere
way
to get
Toronto.
there. Yeah.
Thank you. From Kitchener on the GO train. You're really going out of your way. I will go. You're saying this.
Hang on. Who had the better? I guess with the least more points at the end of the year.
I think the Leafs were. Well,
maybe
they must be because LA's the home
game
team in the first round, so it would be in Toronto.
Yeah.
So thanks for your sacrifice coming from Kitchener on a beautiful GO train to Toronto.
Yeah.
Which?
Oh no, I drive. I don't take the train because
you don't take the train.
No, I'll probably just stay over or drive home. Yeah. It's too hard from where we are. The train doesn't run. You got to get off of Bramalea, take a bus. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's why it's a pain in the ass for to go down on a Tuesday to a game.
There's no GO train from Kitchener?
There is, but it only runs
like rush
direct,
hour,
but it's,
Monday to Friday?
It's it takes over 2 hours.
Does it?
Yeah.
GO trains are slow, eh?
I can, even with traffic, I can get downtown in an hour and a half. When there's traffic, I can get down in just over an hour.
I took a train last summer from Florence to Rome.
Yeah.
It was going like 220 kilometers.
Isn't it awesome?
We got
I know.
No problem. I'm like, why don't we have trains? And it wasn't a new train. Like, why don't we have these kinds of trains? I don't get it.
I know.
What the heck? I noticed that last night on the GO train. Like, this train's going pretty slow.
Well, you're voting. Green Party is all about high-speed trains. That's you're voting.
Yeah. I really am. I think that's the Communist Party. Mm-hmm. That's Green Party.
We're green.
Yeah.
We'll be green municipal or federal and provincially, almost guaranteed. Yeah.
I heard
or currently provincial.
I heard the Green. What, Kitchener votes Green Party?
My neighborhood.
The Green Party.
Kitchener Center.
I think whoever that leader is, that lady. Yesterday I heard something, and I don't follow politics close enough to know this for a fact, but she talked about increasing taxes so that Canada could donate more money to other countries that need it, that are being hurt by the climate. And I'm like, you know what? How about we get a nice train from Kitchener that runs every day of the week? Mm-hmm. Can we stop trying to Canadians are the nicest people.
Yeah.
But can we just save ourselves first?
Yeah.
Like, it's just look around. We can do so much. And then when you save yourself, you can then be, you're on a stronger foot to save the world.
Yeah. Let me help you build a high-speed train. Right? Oh. Yeah. Because we know how to do it, right? Yeah. I'm with it. I thought we'd get out of this without talking politics. I brought that up.
That was soft. Yeah, anyway. That was soft. It's your fault.
Sorry, my fault.
Okay. Anything else that you wanted to be chatting about? You're golfing soon?
I called actually last week.
Yeah.
I was down in the US&A.
Were you?
Yeah. It's a guy's trip. We do it every year. We booked it in.
You don't have to justify. No, I'm going to the US.
Some people may,
you live your life and be proud of the way you're living your life. Stop talking.
We said our golf trip is more important than what's going on in the world.
Stop apologizing for anything. You just live your life. I'm going down to the States twice next month. So
where are you going?
Well, we booked a cruise like a year and a half ago.
Oh, that's right.
Somebody was asking me, are you still going on the cruise? I'm like, we put deposits down a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Absolutely still going. So we have the Rockstar cruise. And then I may or may not be going to Vegas later in May.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm taking Ryan for his 21st to Memphis and Nashville.
Oh, great. Have you been to Nashville?
I've been, yeah. I did a trip for a guy's 50th a number of years ago. We did Memphis, Nashville.
Ryan, the musician.
He's the musician. So we've been talking about it for 5 years. And it's funny. Like,
will Cole join you?
Nope.
Okay.
Him and I will do a separate trip when he turns 21. So it's funny. Like I'm like, oh man, Ryan, is he going to be okay with this? He's like, Dad, like, no, we're not letting this guy or what's going on in the world get in the way of you and I spending time together. He says, I don't care. We're going. I'm like, okay, bud. Like I thought he was going to say, Dad, we probably shouldn't go.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah. I don't know what is it with me that I'm just like, I just don't like other people telling me what to do.
No, I'm with you. I mean, it's tough.
I'll make my own decisions.
Yep, that's right.
I just don't like it when someone decides for me. I'm like, how about I just decide for myself?
Yeah.
I don't like decisions.
Your life, your terms.
Yeah, I guess that's where it comes from. Todd, where can people find the URL? Where do people find?
Yeah, URL insurancetodd.com. It's probably the best.
And if they want to go to your Cambridge.
So we are in downtown Hespeler in Cambridge. So
yeah, nice office.
Yeah, we're renovating. We were consolidating.
You're renovating?
Yeah, we're consolidating. I'm actually closed Guelph.
I know you mentioned that, but why do you have to rent your office?
We don't have enough office space. So upstairs, which was an apartment,
renovation
is getting renovated into offices. So we'll have 3 offices and a couple.
The team must love that office.
Oh yeah, they love it.
Beautiful. Yeah. The basement there has that walkout. You have that meeting space, and a kitchen.
Yeah.
I love that spot.
Yeah.
Parking's okay? You guys have parking out the back?
Yeah, we've got 5 or 6 spots out back, and then there's street parking and public parking. So yeah, I mean, there's the odd client that,
How far you've come from knocking on doors to having a nice office there.
I know.
So people can come and visit you in person if they want to.
Yep.
insurancetodd.com. insurancetodd.com.
Yep.
Appreciate this, man.
Hey, it's fun. Thanks,
Go
Tom.
Jays, go.
Appreciate it.